Hello and welcome back. My name's Kelly and you're watching The Global Bookworm. This is the second video in my new 3-in-1 reviews series in an effort to get some reviews done without rambling on too much. This video I'll be reviewing The Maze Runner, The Darkest Minds and The Book of Ivy. I'm going to start with the first book that I read this year, which was The Maze Runner by James Dashner. Really wish it had not been the first because I only gave it 2 stars and I did not enjoy it. It's about a boy and you pick up the story as he is being delivered into a place called the Glade. He has no idea who he is, where he comes from, why he's there or how he got there, and neither do any of the boys that he finds there waiting for him. Now, everyone in the Glade has a role. There are people who tend the land, people who tend the animals, there's leaders, you get the idea. But the most elite job, I suppose, is that of the runners, because the Glade lies in the center of a maze, and the boys are working on the assumption that if they can solve the maze, they can get out and just find out what the hell has been going on for 4 years, because they haven't solved this in the 4 years that they have been there. There's a new boy delivered every month. And some of the numbers dwindle because the runners that go out into the maze are at the mercy of these horrific creatures called grievers, who I like to think of as kind of Edward Scissorslugs. They're very weird. And our boy, what's he called? Thomas, wants to become a runner. Like pretty much from day one, he wants to be a runner and find out what it's all about. So that's the premise. You probably already know about it largely. I mean, there has been a movie which I also watched just after I'd read the book. The movie I thought was marginally better than the book, but not by a lot. The problems I had with The Maze Runner, the writing was serviceable, but nothing outstanding. Thomas's constant internalizing was annoying. The character of Gally was just a plot device, and the best character was Newt. You know, I've mentioned before that I can sometimes have problems picturing a place unless it's described very, very well, but not too heavily. And a maze, by its nature, is quite featureless and boring, and there was a lot of description devoted to the maze, a lot of time devoted to being in the maze, and I just had no interest in the maze. And by the end of the book, when we kind of have our grand reveal about the maze, it's one of those moments where you throw your hands up in the air and wonder why you bothered. It's like James Dashner had the idea for having a clearing at the center of a maze with some lost boys, basically. He had that idea first, and then at the end, way after the fact, he tried to pin some logical reasoning to it, and he failed utterly in my mind. It is the first book in a trilogy, so maybe he will explain it all away later on. However, I've heard worse things about the later books than I have about the very first one, so I don't know whether he succeeded in that, and I'm not going to find out because I'm not going to read the other books. It was just silly, and I didn't enjoy it, and I don't recommend it. From a 2-star to a 5-star, the next book I have to tell you about is The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. This is another first book in a trilogy, the Darkest Minds trilogy, and I enjoyed it so much. If you can hear the rooster, please just ignore him. It's set in a dystopian world where most of the children of a certain generation have been wiped out by a disease, and the children who were not wiped out by this disease were left with abilities, and these abilities strike fear into the hearts of the surrounding normal people, such that they are rounded up and essentially quarantined in, well, not quarantined, they're imprisoned in these detention centres, these holding centres, and they are divided into 5 colour categories, going from the least feared to the most feared. So you've got the greens, the blues, the yellows, the oranges and the reds. The reds are the fire starters. Among these is Ruby, a powerful orange who is miscategorized when she enters her holding facility at the age of 11, I think, after really tragic circumstances at her home. And Ruby is there for years. She successfully hides who and what she is from everyone, and this becomes increasingly imperative that she do, since her fellow oranges have since been exterminated for being too deadly. So she's keen not to be discovered. Anyway, when Ruby finds herself on the outside and free for the first time in 5 or 6 years, she is on the run from various factions who want to hunt her down, exterminate her or use her. There's a lot going on, and the story is basically how she avoids this, if she can avoid it forever, and the people she meets along the way. It is really quite a political book. There are all sorts of leagues and factions, and I would have appreciated maybe an idiot-proof breakdown of that in one of the end papers. Maybe even a map, because the geography of the United States is quite important, and I'm not that knowledgeable about it. But like, those are very, very small quibbles. It was amazing. The characterization was so good. Ruby is a wonderful heroine. Chubbs, there's a guy called Chubbs who's kind of a sidekick, and he is such a good friend to Ruby and also to Liam. Liam, my god, Alexandra Bracken wrote us an 18-year-old male protagonist who says darling with a Virginian accent, and oh, it's just, he's too young for me, but it works for me, I'm telling you that much. And Clancy is fascinating and grotesque. Like, inside he's hideous no matter what his packaging looks like. Despite being first person from Ruby's perspective, Alexandra Bracken uses Ruby's abilities and also second-hand retellings from surrounding characters to give the impression of kind of a semi-omniscience. Like, we're not too narrow and limited because of that first-person narrator. It's actually quite broad, and yeah, that was skillful, I think is the word for that. There is a love story between Ruby and Liam. It's a very famous one here on BookTube, so I don't think I'm spoiling any of it. It's really good. It's a prominent one, and it's a good one. Yeah. An unreserved 5 stars for The Darkest Minds, and when I finished reading the trilogy, I probably will do a series book talk instead of one of these short 3-in-1 reviews. But for now, we're moving on to the third and final book, which was The Book of Ivy by Amy Engel. And I gave this 4 stars, first off. Second off, it's published by Entangled Teen, and Entangled Teen are on the ball when it comes to the social media, because as I posted a picture of the book cover when I finished reading it and found out that it was the first in a duology, and the ending has crippled me. I'm still recovering. And I said as much on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, the Entangled Teen team, try saying that 10 times fast, favorited my tweet. And then on Instagram, an editor at Entangled Teen liked my post, my photo. So hey, I'm still new to Instagram and Twitter, so when that happens, it still blows my mind. It's really cool. Anyway, The Book of Ivy is about a girl called Ivy, who is the daughter of a losing side in a battle to decide which family that is, would govern what is left of the United States of America following a nuclear war. That was a really long sentence. Ivy is one of the Westfalls. The losing family was the Westfalls, and she's destined to marry a son from the Latimer family. Windy! This is why I'm filming indoors today. She's destined to marry Bishop Latimer, because in this new society the peace is kept by marrying the daughters from the losing side to the sons of the winning side. And it's worked for a couple of generations. Well, not generations. Well, yeah, generations. Moving on. Until, that is, Ivy marries Bishop and finds him to be nothing like her family have taught her to believe he would be. And this sort of leads to her questioning other things that her family have told her and taught her, including her role in the planned assassination. Because Ivy is supposed to kill Bishop, her new husband, and then the Westfalls are once again supposed to take power. But will Ivy go through with it? That's the big question. That's the plot, and again I gave it 4 stars because I did enjoy it a lot. I do, however, think that the characters were more important than the plot. Ivy is 16 years old, and she's a believable 16-year-old. She has all that kind of emotional instability, unreasonableness might be a better word. She's going through kind of an identity crisis because she's identified herself by what her family have told her and laid out for her, and her core beliefs. As most of us, we have our core beliefs based on what our families teach us, and she's really beginning to question those. And I think there is a point in every young person's life where you stop taking your parents' word as gospel anyway, and that's believably portrayed here. However, it's much more important here because the gospel of Ivy's family leads to Bishop's death, and Ivy is the instrument that they want to use for that. And she's torn between her growing love for him and her love and loyalty for her family. It's an interesting dynamic, and it's done very well. Speaking of her family, I hate them, especially her sister. It's only her father and her sister. And at the end, I suspect you will hate them too, my God. As for Bishop, I fell in love with him, of course I did. He's very enigmatic, much older than his years. He's supposed to be 18, he read older than that. And I actually preferred him towards the end when he was more human and impassioned. However, there were some moments in text that in practice would just have been awkward. The fact that he tends to watch her for a long time and pause for ages before he responds. Amy Engel's use of the word "finally," Bishop said this. Finally, Bishop did that. In practice, that would just be weird, and yeah. It's very political, again, somewhat like The Darkest Minds, although it's simpler. You can keep track of the politics more easily because it's just 2 families and their ideas of what should be right, and then in the middle you've got Ivy choosing for the first time her ideology, what she thinks is right. And it raises some questions that actually did make me think, and will probably make you think too. It was a good book. Cannot wait until, what is it, June? I thought it was May. The Revolution of Ivy, I think it's called. Well, I'll put it on the screen. Really looking forward to that, and I would have put it in my most anticipated releases for the first half of 2015 had I known about it at the time, because as I said, I thought the Book of Ivy was going to be a standalone. I kind of wish it had been too, because I'm dying to find out what happens. That ending, what a killer. That is it for this second video in the 3-in-1 Reviews installments. Hope you are having a wonderful day, and that this video will be a short one, but I may have rambled quite a lot about the Book of Ivy. Soz. See you later, guys. Bye.